if you're looking at it from a structural perspective of, I'm just going to minimize some of this stuff that's irrelevant to your class so that it doesn't show up on your YouTube recording, because that could be confusing. Okay, because whatever's open on my computer shows up when your YouTube thing opens. So anyway, so getting back to the tewa ikemasen structure, if you look at it as the wa doing its normal function of marking what the subject of the sentence is, that whole phrase before the particle wa is what you're saying is not good or not permissible, right? That whole phrase is the subject. Terebi o miru koto. The action of watching TV is what is ikemasen. And ikemasen is a conjugation that comes from ikimasu, to go, but it's an idiomatic expression that means something close to the English idiom, it won't fly, it won't work, you know. So it's not allowed. Okay, so it's basically not allowed. So you're saying whatever comes before this particle wa is the subject that is not allowed. Make sense? So that's the structure of it. So terebi o mite wa ikemasen, or tabako o sutte wa ikemasen, or whatever it is that you're wanting to say is not allowed. Okay? So other questions about structures or about particular exercises?
How's the OPI going to be? Because the way you hang on campus, it was kind of like, it was a two-person thing.
Yes, that's an issue because I've never done it as a three-way before. So let me look at
it's like, I
your
feel
class.
It's a little more difficult doing it with 3 people.
Yeah, it's a little challenging, but what we might do, let me just open up the OPI format. Lesson 6, there's the OPI questions, because I'm just reusing the OPI questions that were used the last time I did it. I haven't had a chance to like go through it and try to reformat it to be a three-way. So I'm thinking what will probably happen is it'll just be sort of directed where, like, let's say if Jimena's sitting there where Joe is, that she would ask you one question and you would answer it. Then you would ask Ryan one question and he'll answer it. Then he'll ask Jimena a question and she'll answer it. And instead of you asking all of the questions on a list, I might just reprint the list to be in 3 parts instead of 2 or something, so that it just divides up differently. You know, something like that. I haven't had a chance to really look at it in detail yet, but yeah, I mean, if you guys feel like you'll be ready for it by next Tuesday, sure, we can do the test that soon. You guys are really determined to finish as much of this book as possible, huh?
Yeah.
That's great.
Like, are you going to offer Japanese 3 as an independent study next semester? I
really don't know yet. I mean, it kind of depends on who wants it. How many of you are going to be available for it?
Ryan's not, but I will, and I'm pretty sure Jimena will.
Okay, well, we'll have to wait and
Well,
see.
isn't you and Salem in Japanese 4, right?
Yeah, me and
So
Sam
it's-
will play on.
You guys want to continue on to 4? Okay.
Yeah, so like we'll have them to talk to.
Right, and well,
And also we'll probably
the other
be ahead too.
Yeah, if you guys can catch up to the point where you're finishing this book and you're only like 1 chapter off from what they're finishing, because they're going to do 1 chapter probably of the next book this semester. But I mean, if you guys practically catch up to them, we might be able to just do like we're doing in your group. We started off with chapter 10, which Damon had already done, and he didn't seem to mind reviewing chapter 10. You know, it's usually good to review a little bit anyway before moving on. So we might just start off with chapter 13. If you guys really do finish through 12, then we could start with chapter 13 for your group and have the two groups work together, even
I
though
don't
you'll be
know.
getting
Would we
credit
be
for
able-
different levels.
If we're doing a chapter every 2 weeks, we might be able to get to either 12 or 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, we'll see. So, it depends, I mean, and even if you guys start off on different chapters, if it gets to the point where, like, you and Jimena can catch up and
We
then get on the same page with them, then you guys could work together, even though you'd be getting credit for two different courses. I mean, with independent study, it is kind of flexible, so.
We could do that even if like we were a little behind when the class started, in January, we could catch up.
Yeah.
Especially if we're going at this faster pace now.
Right, yeah, so I mean, if that's something you're comfortable doing,
I would,
Then-
yeah, I want to do Japanese study.
Okay.
Spain.
okay. And then, if, you guys will be done after 4, but if you guys wanted to keep working, we could see if there's some way that we can make some sort of a Japanese
Don't they have
independent
conversation?
study. We don't have a conversation course on the books yet, but maybe we could get one on the books. I don't know, I can look into whether or not there would be a way for you guys to keep going and continue working forward in the Green Book through more of the content, because no matter how far we get with next semester's course, we're not going to finish that book in one
Yeah.
semester. It's way too dense. It's denser than this one. Yeah.
I was wondering, I'm going to apply to UF, and I was wondering, do I start from the beginning from the Japanese 1 courses again?
You test.
I guess.
You test. When you get to UF, they will give you a placement test, and they will place you in whatever level they feel you belong in based on how well you do on your placement test. So the
Okay.
best thing you can do for yourself on that score is make sure that you don't have summer brain drain.
Yeah.
If you know that you're going to be entering in the fall, sign up for an independent study with me for the summer and keep studying.
Would I still be able to?
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
if you're,
'cause I would graduate in the spring.
you could probably still do some sort of a transient student status just to take Japanese 4 in the summertime if you
Oh,
want to.
okay.
Just talk to somebody before you officially graduate. Go down there this semester even, and go talk to an advisor. Explain that you want to continue taking Japanese over the summer, even if you've already graduated. Hopefully, if Jimena's interested and if Joe and Sandlin are interested, maybe we can have a group of about 4 people who want to all do Japanese together over the summertime.
Yeah.
And have some kind of an independent study course or something. And let you keep going with it and keep moving through the rest of that Green Book, maybe even finish it if we get enough time. And that way you would be continuing to learn and use what you've learned, so that when you go in to take your placement test, you're not, forgetting stuff. And if there's like a 2-week break or a 3-week break, however much of a break between the end of our semester and the beginning of that UF term when they do their placement test, because they usually do the placement test, I think, during orientation or the very first day of class or something like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's usually right up at the beginning.
When the classes fill up? Or,
I don't know how they work it exactly, but I know that they do their placement test early.
yeah.
And if you can make sure that whatever gap exists between you taking the last chapter test or the final exam in here and there, make sure that you keep studying your Japanese and keep practicing so that you go into the placement test at the top of your game. And that way you place into the highest level that you could possibly place into instead of placing lower.
Yeah.
Because if you're rusty, you could do poorly on the test and place lower than you belong in, and then you'll be frustrated if you feel like the course that they put you in is too easy for you. You
Yeah.
can always go down a level
Uh-huh.
if you feel like they placed you too high and it's too challenging,
Mhm.
and you want to go down a little bit. You can talk to them about it, and they usually will let you go down if you've got good reasons.
I probably
But you
wouldn't
can't
wanna-
go up.
Yeah, I probably
you know.
wouldn't want to do Japanese 1 again.
No, I don't think you would test into Japanese 1 again. You would, based on how much we're covering, if we do get through if you take 4 over the summer,
Mhm.
you might test into 3rd or 4th semester.
Oh,
You
okay.
might even test into 5th. It depends on how far we get with our content
Yeah.
and how it compares to what they normally cover at UF. She's talking about that placement test at UF.
Sorry, I'm late. There was no parking. And
I know, I had a
the
problem
whole
with it.
sidewalk was closed. I had to go around.
Doesn't
Oh,
that make
gosh.
you mad? Like,
Yeah, it'll be good whenever they're finally finished with whatever that project is. I don't know what that project is,
It took
but.
like 10 minutes to find parking. Oh my gosh.
thank you.
Okay, so anyway, I did hit record before I started explaining something to, Ellie Humana, so, you can listen back to the recording later and just
Okay.
fast forward through our whole discussion about UF. But, what do you guys want to practice or work on, or what do you have questions about? Do you wanna like rehearse for the OPI? Do you want to ask me questions about any of the Zenshu or the kanji?
There's so much kanji
Yeah.
for the verbs. I'm
Yeah.
so confused. I made flashcards for
Okay, so do you wanna look at kanji together then? So this is lesson 6, right?
Yeah.
Let me ask, so
Mhm.
can we also practice for the OPI too?
Sure.
Like at
Okay.
the end?
Sure, okay, let's, since, are you okay with next week? They said they wanted to try the test next week.
Yeah, I did.
So, so that means we gotta just move quick today.
Okay.
So, do you have questions about any specific kanji for lesson 6, or just sort of in general? And are you talking about the required kanji, or were you worried about some of the supplemental kanji? Because these are the only required kanji.
Oh, okay. So it doesn't matter if we don't get the kanji for the verbs?
Yeah, you don't have to do the kanji for
Oh.
all the vocabulary, because those are just FYI in there.
What about that
Mhm.
shower or abiru and ohuro ni
Yeah.
iru? What's
Yeah,
the
ofuro ni hairu.
hairu.
Yeah,
And
ofuro ni
then
hairu and
shower o
shower o abiru. Hairu is to enter, and if you think about the shape of a bathtub, you enter it, right? But abiru is more like something's raining down on you from above. So that's more evocative of how a shower works.
So that would the abiru would apply to rain too.
No, ame ga furu is a different verb, but abiru is just, I think, very specific to showering.
Okay.
Yeah, I think probably because the concept of a shower was an import to begin with, so they just used a different verb for it. Because ofuro ni hairu is to enter the bath.
You can enter a shower.
Yeah, but just entering it doesn't get you clean.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know?
Oh, yeah.
You know,
You have to turn
you
it.
have to turn it on and have some water coming down for it to actually do its job, whereas ofuro ni hairu, you're entering a
Assuming
tub that's
the
already
tub
filled
is-
with water, presumably. And also remember that ofuro is a completely different thing in Japanese culture. Do you guys know how it works in Japan? That a typical shower area in Japan, you're talking about like a traditional setup. I'm gonna give you like the architectural drawing version. Let's say this is your shower room. About this much of it is bathtub, okay? And over here, you've got the door to get in, okay? You've got a spigot here with like, sometimes it's separate hot and cold faucets or even separate hot and cold spigots. They give you a little bucket sometimes to mix the water in to make it the temperature you want. Or sometimes they give you a dipper to dip water out of the tub if there's no spigot separate. Sometimes there's only the spigot that enters into the tub and nothing over here. Some of the modern ones have a shower attachment on one of those flexible hoses where it kind of hangs on the wall and you can take it down if you want to. But you get clean out here in this tiled portion, and I made it too big. It's very often it's a lot narrower than that. But you've got this is your door to get in maybe over here, and you come in here and you get clean. You rinse off completely, so there's no soap left on you, there's no loose hairs on you, nothing. And then you get in the tub to soak. More like a hot tub.
Oh, so
And then you get out,
Do you fill it with
changing,
bubbles?
no, they don't usually fill it with bubbles. The changing room might be over here. You get out here, you get yourself into your clothing. There might actually be like a separate little toilet room over here with the commode in it. This might have like a counter with a sink. And the washing machine, clothes washer might be right there. And so you might actually like get undressed here, put your clothes directly in the machine to get washed the next time the laundry runs. Then you go in here, get clean, soak for as long as you feel like to relax. Get out, dry off over here and put your PJs on. And use the toilet if you need to, and you go out and then you tell the next person, "Ofuro dozo," and they come in and do the same thing, and this water doesn't get changed until that night after everybody's done, it gets drained. That's why you get completely clean here before you get into soak.
Yeah, wouldn't the water be cold though?
No, because they have these it's like a blanket for your tub. You know those solar covers that you can get for a swimming pool?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's like that, sometimes it's a more hard, solid kind of material that's in sections so it rolls. You kind of roll it over and cover the tub and unroll it to get in, and then roll it back over to leave it hot again. And sometimes somebody will come in and like add a little bit more hot water if it cooled down a little bit for their taste. But they make it really hot in that tub. So it's usually not a problem of it not being hot enough. It's usually a question of, is it too hot for you to tolerate? Japanese people tend to like their bath hotter than we're accustomed to in this country. So, you go in and you might come out after just a couple minutes feeling like you're going to faint if you stay in there any longer.
My skin will turn red.
Yeah. Yeah, and some Japanese homes have a little floating thermometer that, it's like attached to a little rubber ducky or something. And it's in the tub, and you can kind of check and see if it's a temperature that you like or not. And I learned how to tell, like what temperature worked for me. After a while, I was like, okay, yeah, I can handle 40 C. 45 is a bit much.
So what if you just get in the tub? If you live alone, does it matter?
Well, I mean, if you live alone, I guess it doesn't matter that much. But in a household, family kind of situations, people always, wash here first and then get in.
Is it just like an open space where you can just shower? There's
Yeah,
no, like,
this
door?
is like a shower area that's closed off. This is walls.
Oh, okay.
So this whole thing is all one room, but then the tub has a cover over it so that when you're showering over here, you're not accidentally getting soapy water or dirty water or colder water into the tub. The exception being in some of the old-fashioned bathrooms in Japan where there is no shower. Some of the really old-fashioned ones, what they used to do was they dipped water out of the tub with a dipper into a bucket, and they washed from the bucket. And then when they were done, they would just dump the bucket over their heads and rinse off completely, and then get in the tub from there. If you want a good illustration of it, watch the movie My Neighbor Totoro. There's a scene in there of the two little girls and the dad having their bath together, and you see the little girl scrubbing, and then she dumps water over her head and jumps in the tub with her dad because she got scared because there's a big storm raging outside. And that's also typical, that families bathe together, especially when the kids are little. And so the tub is huge usually. It's big enough for 2 or 3 people to get in at the same time. And, you know, little kids who don't necessarily know how to do it all by themselves always get in with a parent or an older sibling who's old enough to help them. So like, you know, I remember when my friend had her baby, she and her husband would take turns. You know, tonight it was her turn to take a bath with the baby, the next night it would be her husband's turn to take a bath with the baby. You know, and it's totally not gender-based in Japanese society within the family. Now, when you go to a public bath, it's the same system expanded, but there's the women's side and the men's side. But that's a modern thing. Before Western influence, baths were not gender segregated. That's like a Western Christian influence kind of thing. That, you know, the Spanish missionaries and the Portuguese missionaries showed up in the 1400s and were horrified. Men and women bathing together? Oh my God. You know? And Japanese people were like, what? You know? What are you talking about? What's the big deal? You know?
You guys don't do this?
Hmm?
You guys don't do this?
Yeah, they were like, what do you guys do to get clean? You're filthy. You know, because Europeans at that time didn't bathe very often. And Japanese people have this culture of bathing pretty much daily because they've got natural hot springs all over the country. So, you know, even the monkeys do it in Japan. Literally, there are snow monkeys in northern Japan that have been observed getting in the natural hot springs to soak and even cooking their food. They actually like pick fruit or whatever that they like to eat and they dip it in the hot water for a while and then eat it. Smart monkeys, you know?
Why don't we do the exercises, the real exercises being?
Okay.
Which one?
Does that work for everybody?
Yeah. Which one? Gyaku, Goku, Gyaku,
はい、164ページ。あ、いいです
That's
ね。
good.
Yeah, those are good questions to practice with. Okay, so so the kanji that we're getting you were the supplementary ones, right? Not so much the basic ones, because
Right.
Nishi, Higashi,
We can work on
and
it
all of
together.
those aren't that hard to write. Most of them you probably already know because you guys have been working on supplemental kanji all along.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't see any of them there that are likely to give you that much trouble.
Yeah.
This one was a hard one for us.
Yeah. So, yeah, in terms of supplementary vocab, if there's any questions about those kanji, that's kind of like extra. So we can do that after if we've still got time.
Okay.
Make sense? Okay, so part B.
Right.
Okay, so who wants to start?
You go, Emily.
Okay.
Oh,
今晩何をしますか?
okay, so which way do you want to go?
Oh, okay.
どうぞ。
ラインさんは今晩何をしますか?
今晩日本語の宿題をしています。
します.
します。
Because you're talking about future tense? Te imas is actually doing, like, am doing right now.
So how would I say that with te?
It's te.
Oh, they're showing te as in, they want you to do a sequence. So like, honban, nihongo no shukudai o shite,
And then something else.
nemasu. Or
Okay.
nihongo o shukudai o shite, bangohan o tabemasu. That's what they were talking about for that.
Oh.
Yeah. So 日本語の宿題をしますのして寝ます。
はい。
That's good.
いいですね. Okay. Do you get what that is doing now. So, yeah, they actually, in lesson 7, they introduce te imas as a structure, which actually has the meaning similar to ing forms in English.
I don't know that.
Okay, we'll get to that in lesson 7. So, dozo, why don't you ask the next question?
図書館で何をしてはいけませんか
What does that mean?
Okay, well, ikemasen means to
Is
be
it
not
like-
allowed.
What are you
So-
not allowed to do at the library?
Excuse me, yes, what are you not allowed to do at the library? So what we talked about before you came in was that the particle wa in that te wa ikemasen structure, basically the whole phrase before the wa is your subject. That's the thing that's not allowed. So, nani o shite wa ikemasen ka is asking what is not allowed. And then toshokan de means at the library, right?
Okay.
So, you know, you could say, for example, that talking is not allowed at the library, or sleeping is not allowed at the library, or whatever you wanted to,
How do you say loud?
To be loud?
oki koe de would be with a loud voice,
Okay.
with a big voice, oki koe.
Okay, quiet.
Tabemono o tabemasen?
Okay, tabemono o tabete
Oh,
Tabete
tabete
wa
wa ikemasen.
Oh, well, I want to say and.
Okay.
So it's
Tabemono o tabete,
oki na koe.
oki koe
de
de
hanashimasen.
hanashite
Oh, hanashite.
wa
Wa.
ikemasen.
Okay, I have written that down.
Okay, so what we're doing is the subject wa ikemasen, right? Ikemasen. So whatever, the subject is what's not allowed, right? This subject has to be in a te form for the verb.
Okay.
Okay, that's part of what we're learning in this chapter is that you, to make such and such is not allowed, the way you make this structure with wa ikemasen is this part before wa has to be in a te form
Okay.
structure. So, oki koe de hanashite wa ikemasen. Or, tabemono o tabete wa ikemasen. So it's going to be a te form.
Nete wa
Nete wa ikemasen.
So it'll be tabemono o tabete oki koe hanashite.
Well, except, well, the two don't really combine that well. So what you would probably do in that case would be two separate sentences. Oki koe de hanashite wa ikemasen. Sore kara, in addition,
それから
tabemono o tabete wa ikemasen.
Okay.
Later, we'll learn other ways that we can combine those, but for now,
Two
the
separate.
te, and then final verb way of connecting verbs works better in a sort of standalone sentence rather than inserted into a te wa ikemasen sentence.
Okay.
So you can say that, you know, like, 勉強して寝ます. I'm going to study and then sleep. But the and then doesn't really fit here. It's not allowed to eat and then talk in a loud voice, but if you don't do it in that order, it's allowed? No, it doesn't work, right?
Okay.
You know, so they're sort of separate things. Sometimes there are structures that'll be introduced in the same lesson that you can fuse together and use both structures in the same sentence, but in this case, it doesn't work that well.
Okay. So
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we say 食べ物を食べてはいけません。
はい。
それから大きい声で話してはいけません。
はい。そうですね。That works. Okay, so yeah, anytime you've got two sentences that you want to say, this is true and this is also true or whatever, and they don't connect as a sequence necessarily, but they connect as this and that. For two sentences, you can use sore kara in addition. Yeah, or the other one that you can use is そして, which either one of those can have the connotation of sequence of events if it's a sequence kind of context, but in the context of this is not allowed and that is not allowed, it's pretty clear that you don't mean a sequence in that case, so it works.
Okay.
Okay, so 次の質問のどうぞ。
電車の中でタバコを吸ってもいいですか？
電車の中でタバコを吸ってはいけません。
はい。And I would answer that with an いいえ to start with.
いいえ。
And then 電車の中でタバコ吸ってはいけません。
いいえ、電車の中でタバコを吸ってはいけません。
はい。And again, you can shorten it just like you would with other kinds of sentences.
Kind of like,
so you-
あまり
No, you could do like いいえ吸ってはいけません. You could do just the verb はいけません in the context because you already asked the question with the full form. So the sentence that answers it can shorten the subject.
いいえ、吸ってはいけません。
はい。いいえ吸ってはいけません. That works
Okay.
as an answer. Which, by the way, it depends on the train in Japan. They still have smoking and non-smoking trains in a lot of cases.
The one cancer train.
Yeah. Yeah, I think smoking's not allowed on most of the local, like, subways and trains that you would take within the city, the shorter trips. But I think that on the Shinkansen, the bullet train, they still have smoking cars and non-smoking cars.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Yeah,
So
so
you don't have
if
to
you're,
ride them.
yeah, so if you're riding for 3 hours or something and you're a smoker, you're not going crazy waiting for 3 hours before you can have a smoke, but if you're a non-smoker, you can hopefully get into one of the non-smoking cars and not have to breathe that for 3 hours. Yeah.
大学に何を持ってきますか? What do you bring to college?
Right, what do you bring with you when you go to college?
Okay.
Yeah. はい。
黒い鉛筆を持ってきて、
はい。
テキストブックを持ってきます。
はい、いいですね。黒い鉛筆を持ってきて、黒い鉛筆、black pencil テキストを
教科書。
or
教科
書教科書 or テキスト both of those work 教科書を持ってきます Okay, and in this case because it's like I do this and I also bring that, you know, you could say 黒い鉛筆を持ってきて教科書も持ってきます You can actually use a も in the second one if you want to because you're saying I bring this and I also bring that.
Got it.
Okay, and then if you wanted to use a different grammar structure, the other structure you could use is just the simple to between nouns and just use 黒い鉛筆と教科書を持ってきます If you just wanted to use the verb once, you can use to between the two nouns. But note that to only works as and between two nouns. You don't use it between two verbs. So the te and then the second verb structure that you used originally is what you do for an and. I bring this and I also bring that.
So I would say 鉛筆と教科書を持ってきます。
Yeah, that works too.
Or 鉛筆を持ってきて、で、その教科書も持ってきます。
Hey, yeah, so you can do it either way. Okay?
Okay.
So, はい。鉛筆を持ってきて、教科書も持ってきます。Also works. はい。じゃあ、どうぞ。
よく電車に乗りますか？
いいえ、全然。
はい、いいですね。
How would you use the TED form there?
Um,
Like if I say wait, yes, I write it.
Noru would be notte.
You say no te学生に行きます。
学校に行きます。
学校
Yeah, よく電車に乗って学校に行きます。Yes, I often ride it and get to go to school. Yeah, now, yeah, if you were living in Japan, that would probably be the case.
Yeah.
Most people use the trains all the time in Japan. There's not that much of a train system in this country compared to what you're used to in Japan.
Do they ride
Yeah,
the
if
bus
you've
a lot
ever,
too?
yeah, buses are common too. If you've ever been in someplace like New York City where there's loads of public transit, that's how every major city in Japan is. They've got trains, subways, and buses in most major cities of Japan. And they've got train connections between cities for most of Japan. And it's only when you get out to the real boonies that you'll find that the trains and buses just don't run as frequently, but they still have them. Even in tiny Gujo Hachiman, where I lived when I was teaching English, there was a local train to connect the cities and villages to each other along the river, but they ran maybe once an hour. And they had like 2 train cars at rush hour and 1 train car the rest of the day, you know, because it just wasn't that big of a crowd, but they still had a train that connected Minamimura to Hachimancho to Yamato, and then Shirakawa, and all these little villages that were only a few thousand people apiece, but they still had a train that connected them along the river line. And then if you wanted to get across the mountains to some of the villages that were even more remote, some of them had bus service, and then some villages were so remote that they had discontinued the bus service. Those were practically ghost towns though. One of the schools I taught at that they had to give me a ride to every time because there was no bus system left. There were only 13 kids in the middle school, the whole middle school. There were like 5 7th graders, 3 8th graders, and 5 9th graders, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah. That was it. I think the student body might have been fewer than the number of teachers. You know, it was crazy. I mean, can you imagine this was your whole class in middle school?
Probably were very good friends.
Yes. And I think of the 5 who were graduating that year, I think 4 of them had been accepted to high schools. Some of them were going to the local high school. They were going to have to, I don't think any of them were going to commute. I think they were all going to be boarding at homes closer to the high school so that they could get there every day. And then one boy had decided that he was going to just leave school at that point and apprentice himself to a sushi chef and pursue that profession. And you don't need a high school diploma to be a sushi chef. You just need to train under a good sushi chef. So he was actually leaving school to become a sushi chef, and that was going to be his career path. But the other kids were going on to high school.
You have to apply to get into high school there?
Yeah, you don't automatically go on. You apply, you take an entrance exam, and if you don't do well on your entrance exams, you may just go to a local high school or a high school for kids who don't have good grades. But if you do really well, you might get accepted into one of the really high-level high schools. And how good a high school you go to has a lot of influence on whether or not you get into college, and if so, how good a college. So it's a pretty high-pressure system in Japan.
I remember when I was living in Peru, like, and then we had the public schools that anybody could go, but most schools were private, even though they were really small. So my parents always sent me to a private school. That was like in elementary school, but yeah, they look at your notes and
Yeah.
they say, I didn't take an entrance exam, but They look at your
look at
general
your
knowledge.
academic
Yeah, and say
background.
I don't know.
Wow.
It all depends, like the bigger the school, like the more money, because they're kind of expensive. Like,
So
you have to have money and good grades.
wow. Yeah.
If not, you can go to a smaller school, private
Yeah.
school, because it's different here. Like a private school here, like the size of, let's say, like any of the high schools here, it's more or less like the size of a big private school down there, and
Oh.
it's really expensive, and you don't get as much as the technology. Well, that was when I was back then.
Yeah. Yeah, so every country has differences in their education system. Nobody has the exact same system as anybody else. But yeah, Japan is definitely different and a lot more pressure younger. In this country, you pretty much don't worry that much about grades until you're applying to college. But in Japan, there are some, what they call kyoiku mama, education moms, who obsess about what elementary school or even what kindergarten they're going to send their children to make sure that they're getting a good enough foundation to get into a good middle school, to get into a top-notch high school, to get into a top-notch college. Because what college you graduate from in Japan has a lot of control over your career path. If you want to be in politics in Japan and get anywhere, or if you want to be in one of the major corporations in Japan and get anywhere, or be like an executive or something someday, there are certain colleges you have to go to make the connections, the networking that you need to be successful in some of those fields. The top executives at places like Sony all came from just a few universities. And it's very hard to get ahead career-wise beyond like middle management if you didn't graduate from one of those top-notch universities.
Is tuition expensive?
It's not cheap.
Well, it's not cheap.
Scholarships are rare in Japan, so most families have to be able to pay for it themselves. There are very few scholarships to go around in Japan. And so it's very like stratified. Like the rich families can afford to send their kids to the best private middle and high schools. And so hopefully they get accepted into a top-notch college, and then the family can afford to pay for it because they're rich. Poorer students are not likely to get into the top-notch grade schools, so they're not as likely
Do
to
they
go
just
on
have
to a
like
good
Even though
college.
they have like good grades and everything.
Did they
It's
just-
not just about grades, and the thing is, if the quality of the school you went to isn't as high, even if your grades are good on paper, you may not do as well on the entrance exam, and the entrance exam is everything in Japan. Because every college has its own. It's not like you take the SATs here and you send it to all the colleges you want to apply to. In Japan, okay, let's see, February 1st is the exam for Tokyo University, and February 3rd is the exam for that college that I want to go to, and February 19th is the exam for that college I want to go to, and February 25th is the college exam for that college that I want to go to, and I have to go and take all of those exams on those separate dates. And if there are two different colleges I really wanted to go to that both have their exam on the 17th, I have to pick which one am I going to apply to, because I can't apply to both because their exams on the same day. That's crazy. Yeah. And so if you're applying to 5 colleges, that means you're taking 5 separate entrance exams that might have different requirements. Some of them might be heavier on English, some of them might be heavier on math or Japanese lit,
So you know how like are like all the colleges over there, like do they focus on one thing or is it just general? Because you know how they have like some of their
We've got some that are like specialized in engineering and science, and some that are more liberal arts. I think there's a variety there too.
So if you want to go into politics, you would definitely want to go to a certain one.
Yeah, there are certain colleges that are better for you if you're planning to go into certain fields. So like the college that I studied at for a year when I did my exchange program, they're known for their language and simultaneous translation degrees. So if you want to be a simultaneous translator for Japanese and English, say, that would be one of the best choices for you for that career path. If you don't know what you want to be yet, it's a good liberal arts college also, so it's a good general college, but it's not as famous as some of the others. It might give you a better education than some of the more famous ones, but it doesn't have the same rep. It's like, you might get a better education in some cases from a smaller private college in this country that's not Harvard, but Harvard has the rep.
I said, well, my cousins went to this, I don't know if I told you, but my cousins went to a school that was like funded by Germans, so they taught German, and it was kind of like a big private school down in Peru.
Yeah.
And I went to a regular private school, but my sister, because our high schools,
I think we should probably
Oh,
get
sorry,
back to
sorry, okay, yeah.
we should probably get back to this, and then we can talk about that later.
Sure.
if we have time. What were you up to? What question?
6.
Okay, so yoku densha ni norimasu ka? So, okay, was answered, and then 6番.
先週宿題を忘れましたか？
Could I say something like shukudai or shite and wasuemasen? Like I did it.
Wasuemasu.
Yeah, I did it and I did not forget.
Okay, so 宿題をして忘れませんでした。
Oh yeah.
Yeah. はい。
So 宿題をして忘れませんでした.
Hi. And you could, again, preface that with iye because it's a
I always
yes/no
forget
question,
that
right?
one.
So, 先週宿題を忘れませんでした。忘れましたか？いいえ。宿題をして忘れませんでした。はい。
Okay. 子供の時どこで遊びましたか? Ryanさん.
子供の時公園で
遊びました。
遊びました。
Yeah, you could do just 子供の時公園で遊びました。Yeah.
You don't use this one day? They're asking you to specifically answer with the day.
Well, if you want to use a te and something else, you can. I think they were more saying that for that first question, not necessarily for every question.
Okay.
But if you
So
want
I just
to use
answer-
that
I just
structure,
answer
if you
how-
want to use that structure, though, you could say something like 公園で遊んで
Sunday.
Could you say like
and then something else. 楽しかったです.
楽しかったです.
Yeah, or友達と一緒に公園で遊んで時々うちでゲームをしました。You know, yeah,
Stuff like
I
that.
played with friends at the park, and sometimes I played games at home. You know,
Okay.
something like that.
子供の時公園で遊んで、そして時々うちに
うちで
うちでゲームをしました。
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and you don't really need the そして in the middle of that sentence because the te does the same function for you, the te form
Okay.
on the verb.
それをそして。
Yeah, you don't need that. Okay, じゃあ8番どうぞ。
子供の時よくお母さんを手伝いますかましたか？
はい、伝えましたか？
はい。よく手伝いました。
はい、いいですね。And then, of course, if you wanted to, another thing you could do with that answer would be to give examples.
Yeah, but I was looking at, we don't have like say to cook or.
Okay, we don't have any of those vocabulary
I
yet,
was
so.
looking for it, but
Yeah.
not to.
I guess those get taught in later chapters, because I know that these guys have had.
It's like
so
7 or
just-
8.
Oh, like.
Oh, it was maybe, okay, 7 or 8, yeah, that's not review for them yet, that's coming up soon. So, yeah, so going forward, you'll be able to give examples
Oh,
of that answer, but right now we haven't covered those terms yet, so don't worry about it. So,はい、よく手伝いました。じゃあ、9番は
図書館でよく本を借りますか？
いえ、借りません。本、I say like, could I be like, いえ、借りません。あまり読みません。
That works.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
そうですか？
よくクラスを休み、よくクラスを休みますか？
Breaking class.
Yes.
Do you often like
It's not rest
miss
of
class?
Or be absent.
Be absent. Yeah, in this case, you could translate it more as, do you often miss class?
Are you a slacker?
Yeah.
Basically.
いいえ、あまり休みません
There you go. いえ、あまり休みません。
でした。
You don't need deshta here because it's a habit
Right.
question, not a past tense.
Could you say
question.
something also like, クラスに行って勉強します。I go to class and study.
Yeah, 私はよくクラスに行って勉強します。あんまり休みません。Yeah, or 全然休みません。Yeah.
So you're like half a slacker, because you sometimes. Just kidding. Okay. Can we do that number 4A?
はい、どうぞ。Which,
For
159ページ。
はい。
Number.
Oh, that's it. The
159
combination.
ページ。はい。はい。So the 手 and then the second. はい。じゃあ、どうぞ。
1番。
はい。
テレビをつけて。To turn on.
Well, it looks like she's leaving.
Oh, it's turned on.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
looks like she's turning off the TV and then leaving the house, right?
消して。
はい、消して。
Oh, yeah.
消
Okay.
す。
テレビを消して家
はい。
を出ます。
はい、そうですね。
家 or 家
Either one.
Either one.
Yeah, or what?
家を出ます or 家を出ます。
出ます
Yeah, to leave the house. 出る、出ます。Was that this lesson or?
出ます。Well, 出かけます was on the last lesson.
Yeah, and 出ます is actually one of your kanji in this lesson.
Oh.
Yeah. 出る means to leave. To
What's
exit.
the difference between 出かけるand
出かける is to go out in a sense that implies like going out for
A date?
a date or an outing with your friend or some reason. Like you're going out for a purpose, but deru is just to exit.
Okay.
You know, you might just be walking out of the room. It doesn't necessarily have the implication that you're going out for the sake of like going shopping or going to the mall or going with your friends or going someplace.
So if I wanted to say I go to the mall and say モールに出かける.
Could you say if you're going to a mall?
If you're going to the mall, you would probably say moru ni ikimasu. But dekakimasu just has this implication, the connotation of going out to do something.
Oh, like a
You know,
party.
well, think about it even in English. If you say I'm leaving the house, that's one thing. If you say I'm going out, that has a little bit different feel, right? Going out sounds like you might be going out on a date or you're going out somewhere, right? I'm leaving is just I'm leaving. So deru is like I'm leaving. Uchi o deru is I'm leaving the house.
So if I say 出かけます
Dekakeru is more like I'm going out.
So I can
Yeah.
say 出かけます
Right.
Say
Ima dekakimasu. Yeah, and I'm going out now.
どこでモール
Yeah.
はい
どこに行く?
モール
Moru ni iku. Yeah. Ima dekakeru. Yeah. So, or konya dekakeru. I'm gonna go out tonight. Yeah, doko ni iku, party ni iku,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
stuff like that. Versus uchi o demasu is just, I'm going out of the house. I'm leaving the house. You're not saying that you're going for a particular purpose, you're just stating the fact that you're leaving the house.
Okay.
Okay, so, yeah, that's kind of a fine point of connotation difference there. じゃあ2番どうぞ。
朝ごはんを食べてトイレを行きます。
トイレ
トイレ
パーティクルに行きます。
に行きます。
はい。Yeah. Notice some of the cultural differences. There's a, I don't know if you can see it in the illustration, but there's a little like lid on the toilet roll.
Mm-hmm.
That
Oh.
is actually, in most homes, either a little plastic or a little metal piece that gives you something to tear off against when you're tearing toilet paper. It gives you like a little edge. And
Oh, I
Japanese
see.
people always do theirs roll over the top, so that you've got something to tear off against. Because a lot of Japanese toilet paper isn't as well perforated as ours. So you can tear it off at any point because
Just
you've
one
got
big
that
roll.
little thingy. Well, there are perforations, but they're not as frequent and they're not usually as, like, good, like
Are you saying
like
soft?
it, no,
No,
like
no, like,
the
you know how they
perforations, the
tear-
holes, the
Oh,
break
oh,
between
okay.
pieces, sometimes it doesn't break off as well, because like the machine that did the perforating missed a few spots.
That would suck. I mean, going.
Yeah, so it's more like, like the big rolls in public restrooms, like here on campus, it's got that little edge thing that you tear against. In Japan, even private homes have a little edge thing that you tear against. It's not a sharp edge or anything, it's just like, it's like if you're trying to tear a piece of notebook paper, if you put your notebook down like this and tear, the edge gives you a straighter edge, it's like that. So I find that interesting that there's that cultural difference. We don't have those in this country, but in Japan it's standard on every toilet paper holder. And the other thing is you can't necessarily tell, but most of the time there's a height difference between the floor of the main house and the floor of the bathroom. Yeah, usually it's like a little step down to get into the bathroom, or at the very minimum, clearly defined threshold. And I think that's because in some of the older homes, the way that people used to clean the bathroom floor was basically to dump a bucket of water and swish it around with a mop. And so they made it with a nice size threshold and maybe even a dip compared to the main part of the house, so that whatever water they're swishing around on the tile floor doesn't spill onto the hallway. And you also usually in most homes still have the custom of toilet slippers, where whatever slippers you're wearing around in the house, you leave that at the door and you put on the toilet slippers in the toilet room. And they're usually plastic. And you wear those while you're in the toilet, and then you leave those behind in the toilet space and step back into your normal house slippers to walk around the house some more. And then you leave your house slippers at the door if you're going into a room that has tatami mats or carpet. They usually only use the house slippers on the wood floors.
I was so bad. I'd be like walking around everywhere with my slippers, like doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Or like barefoot.
Yeah. Japanese people don't like going barefoot in the house. They like to always have slippers in.
I wear slippers from my house. 'Cause
Yeah,
I like
they wear, but they have house slippers, and then they have separate toilet room slippers, and then if you've got like a balcony for hanging laundry out to dry, a lot of times there will be separate laundry slippers for just doing your hanging or walking around the outside of the house, so that you don't have to go to the front door and put on real shoes that require laces or whatever. You can just slip on these little outdoor clogs, because you don't wear your house slippers outside, but if you're just going out quick, because in some homes, the washing machine might be like on a little concrete pad just outside the house instead of inside the house. So if you're going out there to do work and coming back in a lot, they have outdoor slippers that you can just slip the outdoor slippers on, clomp around outside to do your yard work or whatever you're doing outside, and then come back in and wear your house slippers without having to mess around with doing laces or whatever on real shoes. Japanese people like slip-on shoes a lot because they do so much taking on and off.
Me too. I only wear slip-ons.
Yeah, it used to be very interesting for me when I was living with the host family, and my host mom was about up to here on me, and if I needed to go out there and use her outdoor slippers, because there was only the one pair, they were about yay too short on my feet. So it's like, oh, I'm hopping around in these things. I feel like wearing a kid's pair of sandals. So I could get my feet into them just fine. They were plenty wide, but they were a couple inches too short. She was, maybe 5 foot nothing at the most.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah, and I wear like, size 8 or so shoe, and she probably wore like a 5.
I wear a 5.
Me too.
Yeah. Yeah, so you'll fit in very nicely when you get to Japan. You won't have any trouble buying clothes.
Yeah, because sometimes the shirts, even like the small, are too long on me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Diet.
Yeah, Jimena and Ellie will be very happy buying clothes and shoes in
The
Japan.
pants
'cause
will
they
fit me. The
They'll
pants will
fit
fit
me. Yeah, and you guys are gonna be out of luck. I don't know how tall you are, but I know these two guys, they're not gonna buy clothes when they're in Japan. They're just gonna have to bring everything with them.
They can
Yeah.
share each other's clothes.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you can be roommates, so you more clothes
You can
to
share
wear.
the slippers.
And you'll be buying, if you need new sneakers, you'll be buying the mail order.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, anything over like a size 12 or so men's shoe is very hard to find in Japan.
What size are you
I'm 12.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you might be able to find shoes these days. A few years ago, it was like size 10 was hard to find. Now, I think there are some Japanese men who have gotten taller and have bigger feet, so it's a little bit easier to find shoes, but even the guys who are tall, often they're like skinny like that, so you might have a hard time finding stuff to fit your shoulders.
That's funny.
I remember trying to buy slacks in Japan, and I couldn't find any long enough. Not a single pair.
It's like the opposite here.
I
Like, all
could-
my pants are too long always.
Yeah. I could buy skirts in Japan as long as I didn't mind that they were above the knee when they were made to be below the knee. But I couldn't buy slacks or long sleeve blouses in Japan.
We like 3/4 sleeves.
Yeah. Yeah. I could buy short sleeves okay, and I could buy shorts okay, and I could buy men's socks to fit my feet. But shoes, forget about it. Didn't even try.
Oh.
Okay, so let's move on.
Grandson.
お風呂を入る
Ofuro ni hairu. So,
で
so ofuro ni, what's the te form?
入るて
No, haitte.
入って
Yeah, 入る
Yeah.
is an utsuru category. So 入って
入ってでえ
depends on what verb you're planning to use there.
行きます
Okay, デートへ行きます. Actually, I would use ni. デートに行きます because デート
Have it
is not a specific
Not a place.
place.
Okay.
So デートに行きます or デートをします.
デートをします
Yeah, that's a common じゃあ4番は
日本語を勉強しています。
はい、いいですね。
That's me.
はい、そして5番。
新聞を読んでコーヒーを飲みます。
はい、そうですね。Any questions about that? Did you want to practice more of that kind of thing, or did you want to try a different exercise? Because we don't have a lot of
I
time.
want to like practice doing something like similar to the API.
Okay,
That's
let's try the matome no renshu. Okay, so,
163
はい、はい。So, example A, they've got be short of money and want to borrow some money from your friend, and the other friend says they don't have money to lend because they went on a trip last week. So you want to read that example, or do you want to try like ad-libbing? Freestyling it. You want to try ad-libbing something like that? Yeah, and we could try experimenting with making it a three-way, like the person who wants to borrow money asks one person, and then and that person says no, they ask the other person.
You can ask why.
Yeah.
どうして
Yeah.
どうして?
Okay, so who wants to be the one borrowing money or trying to borrow money?
Me, because I'm
Hi,
always
Rosa.
Huh? What did you say?
I said me because I'm always so poor.
Aw.
You are short of money, you want to borrow money from a friend. Okay. すみませんが、お金を借りてもいいですか?
Okay, who wants to answer?
いいえ
We don't have to go like.
You don't have to go verbatim with the
Oh, okay.
example, but you could start with that if you want to.
Yeah. 私は新しい靴を買いました。
お金がないですか? You don't have money?
Yeah.
どうして?
Just told you.
I just told you.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's, I guess that's why they wanted you to say, お金ですか? どうして? And then, you know, she's saying her reason why she reads it, and you're saying,
I was saying why didn't you? 'Cause I
yeah,
thought
but you
she-
probably want to start with like,
No.
sorry, I don't have any, because,
Oh, you
I-
said that kind of, or kind
yeah.
Wait, would you say like?
All she did was the
okay.
reason why she couldn't give you money, but she didn't say like, I don't have any because. So I think it works better if you start with like, すみません、お金がないんです。
があります。
お金がありません or like 新しい靴を買いましたからお金がありません you know, say the reason and the result kind of.
Okay. Again.
Okay.
すいませんが、お金を借りてもいいですか?
いいえ、私は新しい靴を買いましたからお金がありません。
ああ、そうですか。
ライアンさん？
ライ
ライアンさんは
いいえ。
どうして
あなたは知りませんから。
He said, I don't know you.
誰ですか?
Stranger.
一番な人です
That's an example of 冷たい。
誰ですか?
Oh, that's funny.
ナナさんは私の友達。
ああ、ひなさん。
Okay, do you guys want to try the next role play?
Yeah.
You have to
Me.
borrow. You have a date. Wait, that one?
Which one? One or?
So,
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know the word for car.
Kuruma.
Kuruma
Oh, thank
is shown right there.
Oh.
Gosh, Ellie. I'm just kidding. Okay.
So,
Oh, that's mean.
So, okay, you have a date tomorrow and you want to borrow a car from your friend.
Okay. You go.
Oh, me?
そうそう。
Would you like 明日デートがあります。So, 車を借ります。
借りて
借りて
も
もいい
Yeah, there you go.
お
明日
借り
明
明日
日デートがあります
明日デート
から
OK 明日デートがありますから
車を
借りて
も
借りてもいいですか
There you go. 借りてもいいですか
車ですかどうして Oh, you just told
She
me.
just told you to stay. She's not following the pattern, so.
いや、ちょっと車が新しいから誰にも借り
貸し
貸して
てあげません。
あげません。
Yeah, we haven't learned the ageru yet, but kashite agemasu is to give to somebody as a loan. Ageru is to give, so dare ni mo kashite agemasen would be like, I'm not loaning it out to anybody.
Ryan さんは明日デートがありますかあなたは車を借りてもいいですか
あなたの
あなたの
車を
あなたの車を借りてもいいですか
Yeah.
いいえ。
Can you think of another reason?
あなたの
車が
車が汚い。
じゃないですか
Yeah.
Yeah.
はい。
残念ですね
私の車は I want to say for my uses, my car from me.
あ、私の車は
私のためです。
私のためです。That works just for me. It's kind of rude, but
That's
yeah. Or you could say, like,
私は話しません Is that right? Don't talk to me.
Just try off in the car.
私と
私と
私と don't talk to me 私と話さないでください We haven't done that structure yet. Don't talk to me. Yeah, that's coming up in the next chapter, I think. But what was I going to say about that? Yeah, the kariru and kasu, you have to be careful because the particles affect how you're using them too. So kariru is to borrow something, kasu is to lend something, right? So karite mo ii desu ka is may I borrow it. So anata no kuruma o karite mo ii desu ka is may I borrow your car. If you're asking the other person, please lend me your car, kashite kudasai. Please lend it to me. Versus may I borrow it. You see that they're sort of like two sides of the same coin, and that's one of the hardest things I think about any foreign language is getting the words that are opposites but very similar in meaning straight. Kashite and karite. Kashite kudasai, please lend it to me. Karite mo ii desu ka, may I borrow it, right? Because if you reverse them, then it's very confusing, right? Kashite mo ii desu ka is like saying, may I lend it to you? Huh? You're asking to borrow it, not lend it, right?
Oh.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, so you actually, okay. I
Yeah, so
get it.
you gotta keep straight, are you asking the other person to, if you may borrow it, or to lend it to you? You see,
Oh.
which direction
Yeah, I
is it
get it.
going?
We're
You
trying to
know?
do one more.
It's like Iku and Kimus.
Yeah.
Ryan-san.
Okay.
Oh, I'm reading.
Right.
You're asking.
Okay. 日本語の教科書。
教科書。
日本語の教科書は lost. Is it forgot study? 忘れました。No.
We don't have the word for
忘れました is
lost.
forgotten.
We don't have the word for lost.
You could use 忘れて, yeah, because なくして we haven't studied yet. So you can use 日本語の教科書を忘れて, you forgot it at home, you know, something like that, 忘れて,
We didn't cover those yet.
yeah.
Need to
So-
study.
Yeah, we haven't done the need to, so, for example, you could say, 明日、テストがありますが、教科書を忘れてきました。てきます、you can use. So, 忘れてきました。I came without remembering, or it came while forgetting my textbook at home. You know, 忘れてきました。I came without it.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, that's a good idiom to know, and it's that same structure that you already know with like 持ってきます. You know, if you bring something with you, 持ってきました, right? You brought it with you. 忘れてきました. You meant to bring it with you, but you forgot it. 忘れてきました. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good idiom, and I don't know why they don't point that one out to you, because that's really useful, and it's using vocabulary that you've already got.
I actually just heard that yesterday. I was watching like a
Yeah.
video that was like sample Japanese situations. And this
Yeah.
guy came to his work, but he forgot something halfway and he had to go down and he had to apologize for being late. He said, "Wasurete kimashita."
Yeah, yeah, 忘れてきました. Very commonly used when you forget something at home or whatever. 宿題を忘れてきました. 明日出してもいいですか?
Okay.
Yeah, I forgot my homework, can I turn it in tomorrow? You know?
How would you say my dog ate my homework? 私の犬は宿題を食べました。
Hi, you figured it out.
Would they believe that?
Wait.
Probably not. Did the teachers here believe it? No.
My dog actually did rip up like one of my worksheets before
Yeah.
the class.
Yeah.
Because it was morning and like I needed to feed her. And so
Aw.
I guess she was just ripping it up to remind me. Or something.
Yeah, yeah, we're out of time, but does that help? Do you feel like you've got enough information to help you?
Yeah.
Are we gonna do the directions?
I think since that's a supplementary thing and we're working at speed here, we probably won't have time to get to it this time. But if you guys feel like you want to cover it, even after the chapter test, we could go over that if
Are
you
you
guys
guys
want
gonna
to.
be in the newsletter?
Yes.
I'll be there after my class.
Okay, so, yeah. So, and I was telling them that what I'll probably do is the OPI questions that are posted, I'll divide it up for just 2 people, but since there are 3 of you, we'll probably do it kind of like we were doing it just now, where you ask something that she asks Ryan, and Ryan asks you, or whatever order you guys sit in, we'll just kind of go around the circle. So I may just reprint the questions on 3 separate sheets so that everybody's got a few to work with.
Is your guys' test this week?
Yeah,
I was
they
about to say, that's
decided,
got fast.
yeah, they decided that they just wanted
Trying to
to
catch
do
up.
chapter 6
Shut
in
up.
2
Like, man,
weeks.
I test this week, Joe?
They want to cover this whole textbook this semester if possible, so that they can kind of catch up to you guys, and then next semester, keep going together.
Oh.
頑張って。